Okay, guys, so welcome everyone. You are beautiful people. I'm really excited to be here with all of you. My name is Arik, and I am the facilitator of a WhatsApp weekly fasting group. This group unites lots of people from all over the world who have this goal of cultivating the habit of fasting once a week, at least for 24 hours, but there are also people who extend it. So, and in between, we discuss different subjects related to healing, spirituality, and how to live more meaningful life in general. So, if you are watching the recording of this video and those ideas appeal to you and you wish to join this weekly fasting group, you're welcome to contact me. My WhatsApp number is going to be below this video. Send me a message with your name and I will happily add you. So today we have our wonderful detox specialist, Ivanna. Welcome. And we're going to discuss lots of interesting subjects today. Really, I have really very good, very exciting feeling about this meeting tonight or today. But we are going to start with a short guided meditation. So Ivana, over to you.
All right, guys. So I want you to sit back and relax in your space where you feel safe and comfortable. And start breathing into your abdominal cavity, filling up your midsection with air. Deep, long breath. The air comes into the abdominal cavity, then fills up the lungs, then fills up the head, and then you gently release. Again, inhale. Air comes into the abdominal cavity, fills it up completely, and then fills the chamber of your lungs, and then moves higher up into the head. When you feel like you cannot take in any more air, simply let it go. No effort, no pressure, no force, just a gentle release. And one more time. Inhale. Let the air fill your body from the bottom of your abdomen and all the way to the top of your head, fully oxygenating and innervating all the cells and structures of your body. And once again, allow it to gently be released. Now I want you to see yourself facing your heart center. You're standing in front of a door. I want you to open the door and walk into your own heart space. See it as a complete dark void, with the exception of a tiny flame, a beautiful spark of energy, vibrantly sparkling in the very center of it. Move toward it, approach it, get close to it. This eternal flame is called the divine essence. It is the original spark of God, of creation, that seeded countless worlds and which also created you. That is the original God particle, a unit of energy of consciousness that is pure, undiluted. It has no emotional content because it's so pure. It is aware though. I want you to direct it to begin to spread outward. And this energy wants to do this because it is a creative energy. It is a force that wants to spread out, create, and touch everything. This energy is also very healing and cleansing. You're not actually directing it because it is self-contained and self-directed, for it is the God particle. All you're doing is allowing it to fill your internal space as it spreads out, permeating every cellular structure of your body, every molecule and every atom. Turning everything on, charging everything up, cleansing, energizing, raising the vibration. Allow it to keep spreading outward. Let it run its own course. Feel it move very quickly and efficiently from the center of you, with you being the epicenter of this energetic wave. And as it moves through your space, through your home, be it apartment or a house, it cleanses and transforms everything it touches, restoring balance and harmony. Simply continue to observe it as this energy continues to move outward beyond your home and your city block, engulfing now your entire city, your state or province. See it spread and cover the entire country as it continues to move outward, encompassing greater and greater areas of the planet. Until it completely covers the entire globe. By doing this work, you're contributing in your own small way to healing of the planet, to rebalancing the energies, creating more harmony, love, and abundance all over the world. Let this energy sit and permeate every nook and cranny. See it even go out beyond the planet and into the solar system. And now I want you to begin calling this energy back and watch it retract, retracing its steps backwards. all the way until it moves back to your country, to your state, your city or your village, the block you live on. Pulling back into your home, into your body, and back into the center of your heart. As you see it back centered in your chest, hold it in your hands. Feel its vibration. Get familiar with it. This energy is always available to you. And all you have to do is simply reach for it. Now place it back where you found it. Walk out to your heart space, close the door, and get back into the here and now. And when I count down to 1, you're going to open your eyes and you will be fully alert and awake. 3, coming back now, becoming aware of your body, sitting in your room. 2, you're aware of the sounds all around you, of the air pressure, of the reason why you're here at this webinar. And 1, you can open your eyes and you're back here with us, fully present, fully alert, feeling like you have just had a nice nap. All right, guys.
Thank you so much, Ivanna. That was wonderful.
Good, I'm glad you liked it.
Okay, Ivanna. So before we actually delve into our topic, maybe for the people who watch you for the first time, or maybe our future viewers on YouTube, maybe you could just tell us a few words about yourself, just give your general background, and then we will go straight into the subject.
All right, so for those of you who don't know me, I am a detox specialist, specializing in raw fruitarian lifestyle. I am an iridologist. I am a channel. I am a trauma release therapist. I do NLP and I help people to live their best life, basically. I help them remove obstacles, whatever they may be, whether they're physical, mental, emotional, and I help to get them back on track in a way that's actually very quick and efficient. And if you would like to contact me, you can either contact me through WhatsApp or you can find my website information, which will be available in the video description of this webinar.
Exactly. Okay, Ivanna. So thank you so much for this brief introduction. And now let's go into the subject. So what are the multifaceted, how did you call this webinar? Multidimensional aspects of healing.
Multidimensional aspects of healing, diet, detox, and fasting.
Yeah. So I'm really curious. I'm eager to know more about that.
Good. All right. So again, Arik, thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you.
Today I'm going to talk about a number of things that I hope to tie together cohesively and hopefully coherently under the umbrella of spirituality. Since the world of detox and fasting is very small, I'm sure that many of you are aware that the natural health community recently suffered a shocking loss. Hildy Larson, who was a well-known and a highly regarded fruitarian detox specialist and a mindset coach, as well as a practitioner of dry fasting, died very unexpectedly last month. Immediately, several people reached out to me, very much concerned and upset because they were worried that Hildy's passing would create more doubt and distrust in an already controversial healing niche, if you will, thus further undermining the principles of raw mucusless diet and fasting, which Hildy passionately championed. Now, they weren't wrong in the sense that there has indeed been quite a bit of chatter throughout the various social media platforms questioning the prudence and veracity of what the mainstream culture considers to be an extreme and even unsafe practice. Certain people took Hildy's death as a confirmation that the raw food lifestyle, and more so fruitarianism and dry fasting, are dangerous and will almost certainly kill you. And of course, this also stoked the fears of those who maybe only recently started to dip their toes into regenerative detoxification with some reservation and trepidation, and who may now be questioning whether or not they're on the right healing path. So today's discussion is going to be a response to both the critics and the doubters. And this is where I'm going to give you a trigger warning, because a lot of what I'm going to say may rub some people the wrong way. You know, as soon as I announced the topic of this webinar on social media, a friend of mine contacted me, warning me that a very prominent person within the natural health community, someone I sincerely respect, by the way, didn't like and didn't want to hear people discussing Hildy's death. She told me to be aware that he's watching. Oh boy. When I heard that, I immediately felt my bristles go up, because the best way to ensure that I talk about something is by telling me that I can't or that I shouldn't talk about it. Even though I do try to contain myself for the sake of social propriety and civility, which means that most of the time you get the restrained version of me in these webinars, I'm generally not known for mincing my words. And in my most recent talks, I've stopped editing myself as much because, one, it's exhausting, and two, I didn't come into this world to please people or to safeguard anyone's delicate sensibilities. I came here to serve by spreading the best leading edge information available, truthfully and with integrity, regardless of how it might land or whose feathers might get ruffled. So this is my mandatory disclaimer and viewer warning for the sensitive types and those who might be stuck in the limited 3D paradigm, who will probably find this information a little bit hard to swallow. Now, this is also going to be an adult conversation. So if you normally have children joining in on these webinars, you might want to have them sit this one out. Now that I've gotten all the preliminaries out of the way, I want to start with Hildy. I think that the biggest driver of public opinion in this case is that most people see death as some negative, scary thing to be delayed as long as possible or avoided altogether. So it's no surprise that they perceived Hildy's death as a failure of her lifestyle. However, if you are familiar with Hildy's story, then you know that her journey was anything but a failure, and that anyone who isn't blind in both eyes could see it as plain as day. Because the woman was quite prolific as a natural health coach, and she shared her work and her healing journey in a plethora of videos across different platforms. Now, I want to make clear that aside from Hildy's family, most people have no idea as to the true cause of her death. Some reports have said that she had suffered a heart attack as a result of dry fasting, while others claimed that she died from a stroke caused by a blood clot following the COVID shot, which is a mandatory requirement to receive treatment in any Norwegian hospital. So there's a lot of speculation about this. But to me, it doesn't matter, because whether it was a heart attack or a stroke is really immaterial to this discussion. What stood out to me the most is that all the speculations regarding the underlying causes of Hildy's death had people singularly fixating on the physical elements of detox and wellness, as if diet and fasting were the only relevant deciding factors in her death, and as if these physical aspects are solely responsible for whether someone lives, dies, or gets healthy in general. Personally, I haven't come across any considerations for the non-physical aspects of human experience as a soul, which, when you get to the brass tacks, are the main drivers of all material manifestation. That's why I wanted to bring the multidimensional perspective into the mix and go beyond the physical level in order to paint a more comprehensive picture of the various healing modalities and their true impact on both the body and the spiritual development. And this concerns not only their benefits, but also their limitations. Now, let me explain what I mean by multidimensional. We all know, at least I hope that everyone here knows, that we're not just physical bodies, but we're essentially spirit. We are non-physical consciousnesses having an experience within the physical reality. And just like a physical person has a non-physical counterpart, so does everything else. It's not just humans who have an energy essence, but every plant, animal, and yes, every single inanimate object does as well. Even the room you're sitting in has a non-physical counterpart that exists in a different dimension of reality. And the same goes for your city and the planet itself. Now, this is something that can be clearly observed in an out-of-body state when, let's say, astrally projecting within your own house or your bedroom. That's when it becomes apparent that while many physical and non-physical features of the space overlap and mirror each other, there are also many that do not. The reason for this is that, for one, there's always some level of distortion involved when it comes to translating energetic frequency into the much more dense and rigid physical matter. But also because the energetic level contains information not just about the physical room itself as it is in the present moment, but it also contains the information connected to the land upon which the house is built, the different versions and iterations of the building, including any other structures that ever stood in its spot, as well as the energetic imprints of all the people that ever lived there at various points in time. For example, one time when I was out of body, I pushed my hand through the ceiling of my bedroom. And of course, my astral hand went right through the ceiling like it was water. And through my astral fingers, I could simultaneously sense and see the many layers of sheetrock, paint, and popcorn ceiling that were put in and removed throughout the many renovations that were done on the property. So even though these materials were no longer present physically, the energetic information remained encoded in the frequency of that room. The ceiling was almost like a layer cake. What I'm getting at is that what we perceive with our physical senses is only a minuscule fraction of the true reality that consistently goes unnoticed by us due to the limitations of our physical perception. The physical reality that we're so hung up on is like a child's stick figure drawing. Have you seen how kids draw animals and people and how their depictions are quite far from reality? Well, that should give you an idea as to how far what's accessible to our physical senses is from the rich complexity of the actual reality that's underlying its limited physical counterpart. That non-physical dimension is the template level reality, which is actually the source code that gives birth to the material world. Why is this important? Because most people solely focus on manipulating and altering the material aspects within the physical dimension to create change, largely unaware that the real change must first occur at the template level. And if we don't understand the subtle complexities that shape our physical reality from a much higher etheric perspective, thus causing us to rely exclusively on the physical markers and indicators to interpret certain events or phenomena, then we're operating with limited and distorted data, which will inevitably lead us to incorrect conclusions. So my intention behind today's discussion is to help you open up to the notion that there is a greater, invisible to us reality that exists beyond this dimension and which determines how things unfold here on the physical plane. Because the truth is that if you're not privy to the multidimensional view of any given situation or event, then you're not playing with a full deck of cards. Now, everyone, or almost everyone here, and I mean by this group, is in pursuit of some ultimate healing modality, thinking that if only they could find the right diet, detox, or fasting protocol, then they would be guaranteed a successful outcome. But the unpalatable thing I'd like you to understand is that not everyone can solve their health problems in their lifetime. no matter how much they fast or how perfect their diet is, because there simply aren't meant to. Let me repeat that so that it sinks in. Some people cannot heal or get well, and no healing modality exists that could make it possible for them, because the body is a karmic vehicle chosen by the soul for maximum correction and growth. This means that if the soul has decided that it needs to spend an entire physical lifetime in a limited body in order to be able to pursue a specific line of consciousness development, then there's absolutely nothing you can do to override that. Period. End of story. Someone made a brilliantly astute comment in one of my Facebook posts that stated that while everything can be healed, not everyone can be healed. The trouble is that by its very design, in order to ensure the purity of the incarnational experience, this knowledge about our existential program is necessarily closed off and inaccessible to us while we're here in the physical body. And herein lies the catch. You simply cannot know whether or not a specific person's health condition is fixable, or if it's a non-negotiable karmic limitation. And even as a psychic, you're precluded from being able to read this information because knowing it would be detrimental to the individual in question, because it would alter their course of action and the choices they might make as a result of that knowledge. For example, if a person knew for certain that there's nothing that can be done, then they may just say, screw it, and commit suicide. Recently, I worked briefly with someone who is completely disabled due to an extremely rare genetic neurological mutation. The family, of course, wanted me to reassure them that a miracle could happen to their child through proper diet, herbs, and fasting. And as much as I wished for their hopes to materialize, I could not, in good conscience, promise them any such thing. In fact, it would be unethical and even manipulative of me to do so. Therefore, it's incumbent upon all natural health coaches, whether you specialize in regenerative detox, iridology, or fasting, to practice your craft with integrity and to not overpromise things to your clients that may not be possible. That being said, I say that we should always operate under the assumption that healing is possible, and we should always adopt the healthiest approach to life, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as well. At the same time, we must also accept that there are no guarantees of a successful outcome. That is what we, from our limited human point of view, would define as a successful outcome. Another fallacious belief many people hold is that if the body is sick or disabled, then the consciousness inhabiting it must be of a low vibration, undeveloped, or they have to pay back some heavy karma. But that is not some rule of thumb that applies across the board. And oftentimes, it isn't the case at all. In fact, the more difficult the condition or the circumstance a person has to deal with in their lifetime, the more likely they are to be an advanced soul. Because as Seth, channeled by Jane Roberts, so eloquently said, You don't give complicated problems to an idiot to solve. You give him simple ones. So it's usually the people who are born with a silver spoon in their mouths that lead easy, charmed lives, who are more likely to be the beginners in the earth school, especially if they're also really ego-centered, immature, materialistic, and focused on serving their base needs or pursuing hedonistic pleasures. Why? Well, for the same reason, we don't put advanced calculus or trigonometry on the first grade curriculum. Instead, we stick to teaching the basics, like letters, colors, and shapes. And it's the same when it comes to choosing an existential program for our earthly incarnation. The IAC, or the International Academy of Consciousness, where I had taken many classes and programs over a period of many years, at one point had a line on a very advanced type of consciousness who still incarnate into the physical dimension. This type of consciousness, whom they refer to as the Serenissimists, is believed to be the example of the highest level of development possible within the physical dimension of reality while still maintaining a physical body. This caliber of being has an extremely expansive and complex existential program on the planet, possessing the qualities and abilities that might be attributed to the idea of a spiritual master. Now, the IAC came up with the name Serenissimus because this being is no longer given to emotional fluctuation and is therefore completely intrusion free. And there's no karma for them to work out. But contrary to our lofty fantasies and mythology, the Serenissimus isn't going around performing miracles like multiplying fish and walking on water. Instead, they work with the collective consciousness of the planet, trying to stabilize the overall planetary energies, especially in the areas of conflict and war. A being like the Serenissimus is always anonymous and hidden to prevent any misplaced projections, because as history shows, humans just love to exalt a person with advanced abilities and create a cult around them. Just look at any major organized religion. Now, because these beings remain anonymous and do not want to be found, they can only be reached in an out-of-body state. Some advanced astral projectors from the IAC had been in contact with the Serenissimus. And what they had learned is that even though this consciousness is incredibly evolved and advanced, the Serenissimus incarnated into a body that was completely disabled from birth. In their physical embodiment, this being cannot talk, cannot walk, cannot move at all. Now, from our limited physical perspective, we might look at someone like that and feel pity for them, thinking, oh my God, look at this poor person. To suffer so badly, they must have a lot of heavy karma to work through. But in reality, this couldn't be further from the truth. The reason the Serenissimus chose this type of a vehicle is, one, to remain under the radar and not call attention to their incredible energetic abilities. And two, since most of the work is done on the higher planes in the service of the collective to improve the overall vibration of the planet, the only purpose of the body is to serve as an anchor in order to ground the consciousness into this reality so that they could actually participate and interact with the physical dimension. Because a soul cannot manifest on the physical plane without a specialized vehicle. Just like a deep sea diver can't plunge to the bottom of the ocean without appropriate gear. It's also important to understand that not a single one of us leaves this planet before it's our time. This applies to young people and children, including the unborn children, which never came to be because of miscarriages or abortion. Now, this is probably the first instance in this talk where my earlier trigger warning is going to apply. Understand that not every soul wants or needs a full human embodiment. This is especially the case for beings from other star systems or other dimensional realities that are embarking on their earthly incarnations for the very first time, and who only need a very brief acclimatization period in order to get used to the frequency of the human form. In the initial stages, all they may need is a few months or even a few weeks in the womb to get their feet wet, so to speak. This means that they will intentionally choose a woman who they know with absolute certainty is not going to carry the pregnancy to term. So if you have very absolutist ideas about abortion, believing that it's murder, you may want to consider this aspect because from the multidimensional point of view, it's not so black and white. And by the way, for the first 49 days or 7 weeks of the pregnancy, the soul isn't in any way attached to the fetus because the pineal gland hasn't been formed yet. And without the fully formed pineal gland, spirit cannot get anchored into the body. Now, of course, there are other scenarios that are possible. For example, some women need to lose a pregnancy for a specific soul lesson, and they will have a limited contract with another being who will help them to have that experience. I know that many people drive themselves crazy with guilt, thinking that if only they had done something differently, then what they perceive as the negative outcome could have been avoided. But the truth is that no one on the soul level is ever caught by surprise by their exit from the physical world. Please bear with me here for a minute. The reason I'm going into this is because I want you to understand, and I want to give you context as to why Hildy's death is in no way some mistake that could have been averted had she done something differently. Every individual's exit points, and just to be clear, I'm talking about death here, are determined prior to their incarnating into this reality. Notice that I said exit points, plural, rather than a single predetermined point. That's due to the quantum nature of existence, where we constantly shift between the many probable versions of ourselves. And that's why there's more than one option available to us, which is based on how our life unfolds and how well we're executing our existential program. In some cases, beings get life extensions to give them the final opportunity to get their program back on track if they are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's what happened to Anita Moorjani, who authored the book Dying to Be Me, which details her near-death experience and how it changed her life. She had literally died from cancer, but was allowed to come back and continue her incarnation on Earth. Now, Anita's near-death experience not only transformed her body, which became completely cancer-free, but it also shifted her purpose toward helping people realize that death isn't final and that the way people are currently living, disconnected from the source and in self-hatred, is really what creates all disease. Why am I bringing this up? Because I believe that the concept of life program extension applies to Hildy. Those who think that fruitarian diet and fasting failed Hildy because she died of a heart attack or a stroke at 56 need to view her life in a broader, multidimensional context. If you're familiar with her story, then you know that Hildy should have been dead 15 years ago. She was completely crippled, bedridden, and in a great deal of constant pain. Doctors couldn't do anything for her other than give her painkillers and send her home to die. Eventually, she turned to the raw diet, herbs, and fasting, which completely transformed her life and her health. The truth of the matter is that Hildy brought herself back from the brink of death and thrived on the raw lifestyle for 15 years. For 9 of those years, she was 100% fruitarian. Some people contacted me arguing that she wasn't fully fruitarian. But the claim she made in her final interview is that she wasn't mostly fruitarian, she wasn't 90% fruitarian, she was on an all-fruit diet. Now, whether or not she was on all fruit or if she also ate nuts and seeds is not that important a distinction because she was fully raw for 15 years. Anyone can go back and look at her videos and see the incredible and undeniable transformation that she was able to achieve through the raw food diet and fasting. The woman literally aged in reverse. She easily looked 15 years younger. In fact, Hildy's transformation was so radical that she was able to change not only the color of her eyes, but the color of her hair as well. She went from brown eyes and dark brown hair to being blonde with blue eyes. Now, I am not saying that detox is going to turn everyone into blue-eyed blondes, so please do not misunderstand or misquote me. What I am saying is that there are a lot of people walking around with brown-looking eyes that are actually blue underneath the chronic and, in some cases, degenerative lymph. As it happens with many people, Hildy was born blonde and then turned into brunette. I myself was platinum blonde till about 6 years of age, after which my hair started to slowly turn darker. And this is quite common, and people assume that this is natural, but it's not. It's the result of toxic accumulations in the body from crappy diet and chemical exposure. When it comes to eyes, how many people think that it's normal for babies to be born with blue eyes, which then turn brown? Well, it's not normal. If you were born with blue eyes, which later became brown, it happened due to serious bodily pollution. Obviously, a lot of people like myself have true brown eyes, which will remain brown no matter how much I fast or detox. But my eyes did become several shades lighter as a result of cleaning up my lymphatic system. So as Hildy detoxed, her eyes changed color and her hair went from brown to gray and then to blonde. And you could see this progression unfold over a course of time as it was documented in her videos. So Hildy didn't die because fruitarianism or veganism is inherently unhealthy. If anything, I think that she's a true success story, a prime example of what can be achieved through proper diet and fasting. Hildy transitioned because she had completed her existential program. It's as simple as that. How many times We see this happen when a person struggles in life. Maybe they have a serious addiction, or they have difficult relationships that are causing a great deal of disharmony and pain in their life. And then a miracle happens. In some way, somehow, they dig their way out of the muck and get it together. When they're finally on the right path, on the right track, where things are finally working for them, and then boom, just as soon as things start going the way they should, the person drops dead. And what do we say? Oh no, how terrible. He or she finally got it together and could have lived a nice, long, good life. It's such a shame that their life was cut short, just as it was starting to get good. What we don't understand from our limited perspective is that the person's life task was to conquer their demons or to work out whatever conflicts they were dealing with. And once they were able to overcome those obstacles and meet their karmic goals, they had effectively completed their life mission, thus bringing the incarnation to a close. From our earthly point of view, we see this as something tragic, while the soul, from its expanded multidimensional perspective, sees it as a triumphant success and a job well done. Now, another thing that stood out to me in Hildy's final interview is that when asked about how long it took her to achieve her desired level of health, she replied that she never achieved her desired level of health. And that caught me by surprise because her health appeared to be quite robust. She had a ton of energy and she looked fantastic. But I also know that Hildy constantly pushed the envelope in her desire to go deeper. And I see this quite often where some people in the natural health community become obsessed with detox. No matter what kind of improvement in health they attain, it never seems to be enough. They always want to dig deeper. Some even become preoccupied with the ideas of immortality or extending their lifespan beyond 100 years through diet, detox, fasting, and practices like breatharianism and the autonomous lifestyle. Spoiler alert, everyone is already immortal and indestructible. The soul is eternal and limitless. The body, on the other hand, by its very nature, due to the built-in vibrational limitations, is temporary. It is perishable, just like an apple or a potato. It's nothing more than a dress of clothing. Trying to make the physical body immortal is like insisting on wearing the same piece of clothing your entire life without ever taking it off. That's silly and immature, not to mention boring and limiting. A tailor-made, perfectly suited body is chosen for each incarnation that is appropriately equipped for the specific mission set out by the soul. You don't wear a tuxedo to hot yoga, just as you wouldn't wear a G-string bikini to an international political summit like G7. The point is that there's no diet or fasting protocol that can make anyone immune to death. This silly fixation on physical immortality is rooted in our deep entrenchment within the dense limitations of physical reality and our intense fear of death. I see so many people becoming obsessed with detox and fasting that it turns into another addiction of its own. But please understand that by being in a constant pursuit of impossible perfection, they deny themselves the fulfillment and satisfaction that's already available to them. Paradoxically, when you're constantly seeking health, it ends up eluding you, because seeking health and having health are two completely different frequencies that are represented by two different vibrational realities. If you're constantly working on getting well, then your health will forever remain a work in progress because you're in the vibration of striving rather than having. You need to think of your body as energetic frequency that is defined by a specific formula or an equation. A sick body has a completely different energetic signature than a healthy one. And the body that is in the intermediary state of trying to heal is of a different frequency altogether. What I'm saying is that these are literally three different bodies, and each of them exists within a distinctly separate probable reality that corresponds with an alternate version of yourself. So the formula defining the state or condition of your body is a constant, but the values you plug into the formula in the shape of your beliefs and expectations are the variables that determine the result of that equation. When we achieve healing, we're not in any way altering the sick body we currently have, because it forever remains in the probable reality that corresponds with the vibrational signature of illness. Healing occurs when we plug in different variables into the equation, thus changing our overall frequency, which causes us to jump realities. And as a result of this jump, we start looking through the eyes of an alternate self who is healthy and who has the body that never experiences any of the symptoms associated with the sick body. If you're coming from the point of view where you're in a state of dis-ease, but trying to get well, what vibrational state do you think you embody? The state of disease. Trying to get well is not the same as being well. And this is where I see people undermining themselves and keeping themselves stuck. Please stop looking for things to fix, because if that's your focus, then you will always find more issues to work on. The reason for this is that you are but one version of an endless multitude of selves that all have a designated vibrational reality within the quantum field of probabilities, where anything that can exist does. And it is as valid and real as what you currently perceive. This means that every possible version of you, be it healthy, sick, poor, rich, happy, miserable, and everything in between, exists as a separate vibrational reality within the quantum field. When you're locked into the idea of fixing and constantly digging deeper to get to the bottom of the issues that you think are buried somewhere in your genetics or karma, you're inevitably homing in on the probable reality that corresponds with that vibration. And the deeper you dig, the bigger the hole you're going to find yourself in. And many people just camp out and start living there. The problem is that unless you dramatically shift your state of consciousness, you're going to remain stuck there, always trying to get somewhere, but never arriving. This fixation on fixing is what keeps you from ever getting to the place where you permanently fixed and where there's nothing wrong with you. For example, there is a big vibrational difference between drinking juices because you like it and it's good for your body, as opposed to going on a juice fast that you perceive to be a necessary restrictions to get at your illness. Because in this case, the predominant frequency you're going to embody will be that of difficulty, limitation, restriction, and illness, which are on the opposite end of the vibrational spectrum of where you want to be. And people can become quite rigid and dogmatic when it comes to adhering to their self-imposed restrictions as they pursue what ultimately becomes the unattainable level of perfect health. Many of them fear that any deviation from that protocol equals failure. I've had clients who became afraid of food, wanting to remain on juices for unrealistically long periods of time because they worried that going back to solid food would either set them back or worse, nullify all the work and the progress they've made thus far. What I want to emphasize is that there's no such thing as physical perfection because by its very definition, the physical state that requires a body is inherently flawed and limited. I see time and time again where people set themselves up for failure because they installed psychological programming that's counterproductive to the goals they want to achieve. And this is why I personally reject the modality known as autonomous or self-sustaining lifestyle that's based on dry fasting and sleep deprivation. If you look at the figurehead of this movement, Anastasia Zalevich, she still suffers from rheumatoid arthritis despite adhering to this extreme protocol for many years. And the only time she doesn't have symptoms is when she doesn't eat and doesn't sleep. Why? Because she believes and preaches that both eating and sleeping are harmful to the body. In fact, she maintains that sleep is what essentially kills us. Well, when you install a program in your unconscious mind, which happens to control autonomic body functions, that food and sleep create disease, then every time you eat or sleep, because try as hard as you might, no one in a physical body can sustain this state indefinitely. You're going to create very unpleasant physical symptoms for yourself, and unnecessarily so. Once again, when this program is installed in the unconscious, it starts running on autopilot without any conscious input from us. So this is a very stupid way, in my opinion, to keep yourself stuck in the condition of sickness while you continue striving for health and immortality. Now, I say this because Zalevich believes that by eliminating sleep, she has cracked the code of immortality. But it's one thing to talk about lofty ideas and strange experiences, which look a lot like psychic phenomena. Understanding what's really happening from the multidimensional perspective and knowing whether it's good or bad, as well as what to do about it, is a whole other ballgame. For example, Anastasia once shared that she went without sleep for so long that when she was driving, she all of a sudden could see things behind her without turning her head and looking back. And this really frightened her because she didn't know what to make of it. And she felt that it was dangerous to drive in that condition. Now, did she realize what was happening with her? Based on what she said, it doesn't seem like it. The important thing I'm trying to get across here is that just because someone was able to fast for an X number of days or go without sleep for a long time, it doesn't automatically make them proficient in non-physical phenomena. Turning on psychic perception doesn't equal to understanding what it is you're perceiving. For example, a dog can watch Swan Lake on TV and perceive the colors, the music, and the human figures moving across the screen. But does it understand that it's watching a dance interpretation of a story about an ugly duckling turning into a swan? Let alone the nuances, like that the duckling was never a duckling in the first place, but a baby swan who didn't fit in and suffered bullying and abuse from those who didn't understand his true nature until he transformed into the graceful swan. See the difference? The complex story with a deep moral meaning versus a bunch of tiny humans weirdly prancing in tutus to music. Now, what happened in Anastasia's case was the misalignment of the bodies, where her conscious awareness had shifted more to the astral vehicle. You probably know this, but we have at least 4 vehicles of manifestation that we are aware of at this stage of development. But in this discussion, I want to focus on the 3 we use the most: physical, energetic, and the emotional body, also known as the astral body. The energy body is the subtle membrane that maintains the connection between the physical and the astral bodies. When all 3 bodies are aligned, we are awake and our awareness is focused in the physical body. However, when our awareness is centered in the emotional body, our perception is no longer limited to the physical senses. The astral body doesn't have eyes that work in the same way that physical eyes operate. The vision you experience in an out-of-body state is 360 degrees, and information is perceived wholly and all at once. This means that you can see everything and everywhere, including all the places where your physical eyes cannot reach, like behind you or beyond the wall of a building. When I had that experience of pushing my hand, my astral hand, through the ceiling, it was like I was actually able to see with my hand. Such misalignment of the physical and the astral bodies actually constitutes a partial astral projection. This means that you're literally partially out of your body. It's important to understand that when your consciousness is focused in the astral body, you're no longer perceiving the physical dimension. What you're perceiving is the template level reality. During a partial projection that occurs as a result of the misalignment of the astral and the physical bodies, you are straddling both the physical and the astral dimensions, simultaneously perceiving various elements of both planes at the same time. Needless to say, this can be dangerous when you lack awareness, training, or understanding of what's happening. For example, if you're driving while in this misaligned state, the road you're looking at may not be the physical road, but its non-physical counterpart. You may all of a sudden see a person come out of nowhere in front of your car, causing you to swerve violently. What you might not be able to discern in that moment is that the jaywalking individual isn't a living human being, but a spirit. But because you're out of alignment with your physical body, you can't tell the difference. So you act as if it's a real person and try to avoid hitting them with your vehicle, which could cause an actual real accident that may lead to injuries or even death. Let me give you an example of something that some of you may have experienced while in deep meditation so that you can better understand what I'm talking about. Let's say that you're sitting in a long meditation and your body is totally relaxed. Now, you may be in a lotus position with both arms resting on your thighs, when out of nowhere, boom, one of your arms suddenly jerks upward, flying off your lap. But as you immediately open your eyes, you can see that your arm is resting in its very relaxed position, appearing like it hasn't moved at all. Well, that jerky arm movement isn't your physical arm moving. What you're experiencing is the separation of your astral arm from its physical counterpart. And yet it feels so real that you couldn't tell the difference between the sensations in the physical and the non-physical arm. Another phenomenon most people have experienced at least once in their life is the sensation of falling and slamming onto their bed. What happens here is that having drifted off to sleep caused a natural separation of the astral body from its physical counterpart. In the majority of cases, this means that the astral body is floating close to the physical one. Now, most people lose lucidity after falling asleep, meaning that their awareness is shut off. So the sensation of falling is experienced as a result of suddenly gaining lucidity while in the astral body and realizing that you're floating. And since the physical mind doesn't accept this state as a normal thing, it creates a bit of a panic, sharply shifting the awareness back to the physical body, which brings both bodies back into alignment. The brain translates the shift as falling back into the body. Once again, the feelings and sensation associated with this phenomenon that is not a physical phenomenon feel very tangible and real. One of the reasons I'm bringing this up is to help you understand why sleep is not just important, but essential. And it has nothing to do with physical recuperation. During sleep, we go out of the body, which gives us the opportunity to reconnect with our soul and recharge with prana. Most people confuse prana with the physical energy of the sun, but this is incorrect. While it is true that we can and do recharge by the immanent energies coming from the earth, the sun, and the natural bodies of water, these are purely physical, dense energies. Prana, on the other hand, is the non-physical, subtle energy of the divine source that creates and supports the existence of the physical plane. That's why even the verified, bona fide breatharians sleep. Granted, they sleep less, and their sleep is broken into multiple shorter intervals that are stretched out throughout the day. Nevertheless, they all sleep. The only way a physical human can sustain the constant state of no sleep is by being in a permanent out-of-body projection while also being awake. But as I already explained, that creates a host of confusing challenges where you don't have a handle on reality because you're straddling two different dimensional realities simultaneously, unable to tell which is which. And as Anastasia's example illustrates, this is a good and fast way to drive yourself insane. Now, I know that there are accounts of some beings throughout history who have been said to have been able to do this. But what you might not realize is that they weren't regular humans like you and I. They were actually quasi-physical, meaning that they appeared to have physical form, but for all intents and purposes, their body was nothing like the bodies you and I have. Even Victor Truviano is said to have a body that functions very differently from the standard issue human specimen, and that medical diagnostic equipment cannot get a read on his bodily functions. So I would exercise caution and restraint with respect to the so-called autonomous lifestyle, because this could actually create unsafe situations for you. Another thing I would like you to ponder is that if the autonomous modality that combines dry fasting and chronic sleep deprivation is truly healing, then why does Anastasia continue to suffer from symptoms of RA after years of practicing this lifestyle when most of Filonov's patients resolve their osteoarthritis after a single 11-day dry fast without any sleep restrictions. So that's something for you to think about. Now, since we're on the topic of parapsychism and astral projection, let's talk about whether or not prolonged fasting can help you unlock psychic abilities or promote spiritual development. I believe that one of the main reasons more and more people are getting into fasting these days is to find some sort of enlightenment rather than to fix their health issues. Some people believe that consistent fasting is a necessary transition towards breatharianism and living forever. What I find incongruous and amusing is that they miss the very point of the exercise. For example, one of the main benefits of astral projection is to demonstrate that we are not the body, that our selfhood and our identity not only survives, but remains perfectly intact outside of the physical vehicle. Out-of-body travel is supposed to eliminate the irrational fear of death, showing us that consciousness actually expands outside of the body because it's no longer limited by the rigid physical constraints. This understanding, however, runs contrary to the idea of wanting to extend the lifespan of the body indefinitely, which stems from the complete identification with the body, making one fear that if the body goes away, so do they. This is a bit hard to explain to someone who never had lucid out-of-body experiences. But leaving the body and experiencing non-physical dimensions only makes you want to stay out of the body, not become more attached to it. That means that if you're doing it right, using fasting as a tool to develop your psychic abilities, then it will only make you want to let go of the body rather than want you to keep it running forever, by making you realize what a limitation the body truly is. I had an experience where my guides simply lifted me out of my body by my shoulders and my legs and placed my astral body on the bed next to my physical body. It was so bizarre and disconcerting because I felt like I was lying next to a corpse. I was acutely aware that the thing next to me wasn't me. It was just a thing, an empty shell. I was right here, fully self-aware and self-contained, and I was missing absolutely nothing. If anything, everything I knew myself to be was enhanced. So from the multidimensional point of view, trying to hold on to the body indefinitely seems insane because it makes no rational sense to want to willfully remain in such a terribly confined and restricted state given the alternative. The inherently limited nature of the body also serves as a boundary that limits our consciousness expansion. Please understand that some levels of spiritual growth and expansion will remain out of your reach as long as you are attached to a physical body, period. Just like the speed of light is the measure that delineates the boundary of the physical universe, so does the physical body draw a non-negotiable boundary that keeps us from being able to access certain levels of higher information. Don't get me wrong, you could still get to some of them via out-of-body travel, and more specifically by projecting via the mental body. However, you will never be able to integrate those experiences into your physical awareness because they simply cannot be translated into physical terms. So you may even currently be having these incredible experiences that nevertheless don't spark an iota of enlightenment within you because you're not aware that you're having them. So what's the point? Can fasting help you turn on your psychic abilities? Yes, but only to a point. Throughout this discussion, I've been driving home the point that it's not enough to produce psychic phenomena, but you also have to increase your lucidity. From my point of view, that's where the main work lies, because without lucidity, you're no better than a dog watching Swan Lake on TV. And just so we're clear, you don't need to fast a single day in your life to develop your psychic abilities. That can be achieved with consistent energy work that enables you to consciously move and control your energy. And fasting doesn't do that. What does happen during an extended dry fast, and it has to be a fairly decent amount of time, I'd say at least 7-9 days. So what happens during this time is the loosening of the energy body or holochakra, which causes a partial misalignment of the astral and the physical bodies, thus allowing the person to perceive subtle frequencies of the non-physical dimension. Now, this may manifest as seeing auras and energies, telepathic communication, remote viewing, and as already discussed, it makes it easier to leave the body, allowing for spontaneous astral projection. And by the way, the same misalignment of the bodies often occurs during severe illness, just so you know. What I want to make clear is that astral projection is not some rare special occurrence reserved for the few and the gifted. Absolutely every single one of us, without exception, leaves the body every time we fall asleep. So this is not a matter of simply producing out-of-body experiences, because we all have them. What it really boils down to is the quality of the astral projections. And the quality of the OBEs is contingent upon your level of lucidity and the condition of your energy body. But it's not enough to be awake during an OBE. You also need to know and understand the type of phenomena that can be encountered in the non-physical state, as well as how to operate on the astral plane, whose rules of engagement are completely different from the ones that apply in the third dimensional density. For this, you need training and education. For example, a great majority of people only project within the vicinity of their bedroom, never venturing out beyond its boundaries, where their astral body simply floats above the physical one. This typically happens as a result of very dense and sticky holochakra that's caused by the chakral blockages. Additionally, most of those who do manage to travel interdimensionally don't remember their experiences because of diminished lucidity. Another thing you need to keep in mind is that even though dry fasting can make it easier to separate from the physical body while maintaining lucidity, it doesn't automatically mean that you'll be communing with angels or that you will be visiting higher vibrational realities. While you may indeed gain a better ability to tune into the subtle energies, what you will be tuning into very much depends on your personal vibration. In other words, you can only travel within your vibrational range. This means that if you are vibrating at the lower end of the spectrum, you're going to be perceiving things and astrally projecting into dimensions that are not so nice. Remember that like frequencies attract and dissonant frequencies repel. And when it comes to out-of-body travel, you don't go where you wish to go. Instead, you're magnetically pulled into the environment that reflects your predominant vibration. That's why it's so common for people to have out-of-body experiences of eating and drinking while fasting, because the thoughts of thirst and hunger are so pervasive. Those who have repressed sexual proclivities, for example, will find themselves in non-physical environments that are full of other beings, both dead and astrally projected, that are consumed with those ideas and who are playing them out. If you have dependencies, addictions, fears, unresolved traumas or emotions, that is the vibrational soup you'll be swimming in. And that is the level and the quality of the frequency you'll be limited to, whether you're in or out of the body. Remember that the astral body is called the emotional body for a reason. And all of the emotions that are normally kept behind the confounds of the physical body all come spilling out unrestricted when the physical body is left behind. As the old adage says, wherever you go, there you are. This means that aside from energy work, emotional work, as well as permanent changes in behavior that reflect a more ethical, loving, and compassionate nature, must become a part of the process if your goal is spiritual growth and development. Somebody shared a story that during a long dry fast, they had encountered negative people whose behavior and energy were so disruptive that the person decided to cut their fast short because they felt uncomfortable or scared or something along those lines. I believe that this was framed as if some dark forces were intentionally interfering in an attempt to derail this person's fasting efforts. Here's the thing about frequency, and I'm going to repeat myself here. Like frequencies attract and dissonant frequencies repel. Since physical reality is nothing but a crystallization of your own energy, you cannot perceive that which you are not a vibration of. This means that if you're encountering negative entities, events, or people, be it while you're fasting or just in general, it's not some concerted effort by the outside evil forces to sabotage your growth or to derail your fasting efforts. You are the source of that interference. Because the quantum physics tells us that the outside world is not real in any tangible sense. In fact, it's nothing more than a projection of your own consciousness. Everything on the outside is only a reflection of what's inside us. Because outer reality is simply a mirror that reflects our personal frequency. By organizing gazillions of moving particles into things, places, people, and events. Therefore, if you're coming up unpleasant circumstances of this nature during a fast, it isn't a sign to stop, pack up your toys, and go home. It's merely a signal that you need to adjust your frequency because you're not quite as balanced as you thought you were. That is the work that fasting helps you accomplish in order to raise your frequency and expand your consciousness. The work lies in learning how to consciously shift your inner state to such an extent that it changes the external circumstances instead of breaking the fast because someone was being mean to you. When you encounter dissonant energy, instead of getting mad, say thank you. Thank you for showing me that I am out of alignment. That being said, it is indeed true that there are beings that get attached to us and siphon off our energy. But again, these entities are only able to get their hooks into us due to our common energetic resonance with them. It's similar to parasites in the sense that parasites only dwell in polluted bodies, i.e. corresponding culturing medium. On the other hand, if the body is clean, it doesn't matter what kind of virus or a bug you come into contact with. Regardless of how virulent it may be, it simply will not stick. Similarly, negative entities can attach to cannot attach to a higher frequency energy body. Every kind of addiction, be it food, drugs, alcohol, sex, rage, or depression, and yes, both anger and depression are addictive emotional states. In other words, every type of dependency or imbalance there is will always be accompanied by at least one non-physical consciousness who basks in those energies and who is using the living human as a source of specific supply. Now, these aren't demons or anything like that. These are just dead people who, instead of moving on, choose to remain close to the physical dimension, either because they're not aware that they're dead and they're simply hopelessly clinging to energetically similar living individuals, or because they want to keep partaking in the specific activities simply because they enjoy them. And given that a dead person no longer has a physical or an energetic body, the only way they can experience those states of being is through parasympathetic assimilation, which is achieved via energetic coupling. This phenomenon is known as intrusion. And intrusion comes in many different forms. There's self-intrusion, there's physical intrusion by living persons, as well as extra-physical intrusion. But this is a complex topic that I'm not going to go into here. I'm going to focus more on the extra-physical intrusion, meaning by non-physical beings. Most people have these parasitic bonds with non-physical entities for years and even decades. If you have food addiction issues, then these extra physical intruders will constantly drive your dysfunctional eating behaviors. And they will absolutely try to get you to break your fast by increasing your cravings and the feeling of hunger or thirst in order to avoid the undesirable interruptions in service, so to speak. If you can withstand their manipulation and stick to fasting, they will leave you alone and disconnect for some time. But I regret to inform you that your fast is only a temporary inconvenience to them. What other coaches won't tell you, simply because they're largely unaware of these energetic and multidimensional aspects, is that your intruders are not with you 24/7 anyway. These beings are incredibly smart and cunning, and they use sophisticated energetic technology. How they connect with us is by creating and installing the so-called energo plugs into our energy body. And most commonly, this affects our 3 lower chakras, depending on the specific type of energy they prefer. This energo plug is a lot like an outlet, which they use to plug into your whole chakra. But what you must know is that regardless of whether or not they're connected to your energy system at any given time, that energo plug enables them to feel everything that's going on in your energy system and therefore the body itself. So during the fast, they may disconnect and look for an alternate temporary source of supply. But as soon as you break your fast, boom, it's like someone has rang the dinner bell and they're instantly back and ready to feed. What ends up happening is that many people tend to go off the deep end and dive headfirst into a binge immediately after the fast, where they cannot stop themselves. And this is something I hear a lot from clients. They can fast for 5, 7, 9, 11 days and be perfectly fine. But as soon as they resume eating, they lose all control. And the reason for this is psychic intrusion. Now, I'm going to explain this mechanism so that you understand why you feel how you feel. And since this is going to be an adult conversation, I'm giving you another viewer warning here. It's easier to explain the intrusion-driven food addiction by using sex as an example, because most of us have such a distorted relationship with food that we can't even tell when something is amiss. And since sex is an activity that has a very high incidence of intrusion, it's in some ways easier to identify. Plus, I think that this could be helpful for those of you who may directly deal with this particular issue. Now, an orgasm is a release of energy. And when two people engage in a sexual act, there is an exchange of energy that occurs between the partners. This means that both individuals should feel energized after the climax. But as I already said, we all have disembodied beings attached to us that are looking for certain types of energies that are generated and released in connection with specific activities. People who habitually watch porn or are sex addicts have a truckload of such entities following them around. The example I want to give you is of a specific type of experience where during the sexual act, be it with another person or solo, the sexual energy is building and gaining momentum. And everything is going smoothly right up until the point of the climax, where instead of energy reaching the inevitable peak, things inexplicably go from 100 to 20 or even 0, almost like deflating a balloon. This is where an orgasm either doesn't occur at all, or if the energy does reach some sort of culmination, it's disproportionately muted and dissatisfying in comparison to the buildup. In other words, you didn't get no satisfaction. This is usually where the person involved wants to go for another round in a repeated attempt to get that energy. So what is happening here? The reason the individual cannot reach promised land is that the intruder siphoned off the energy, effectively hijacking the person's orgasm. And that's why, despite being engaged in sexual activity, the hero of our story keeps needing and wanting more sex because the desired release keeps eluding them, which is what creates and reinforces the addiction. This particular phenomenon is made exponentially worse by the internet porn. Because if in a regular scenario, you might have one or two parasitic hitchhikers attached to one or both partners, when it comes to porn, you're plugging into a vast network of beings that are not only affiliated with the image or the video, but you're also connecting to the intruders that are attached to the tens of thousands of other people who are simultaneously watching the same material, thus allowing those entities direct access to your energy system. And they're all hungry and looking to feed. You may have noticed that porn stars age at a faster rate, and they often end up looking worn out and even haggard after being in the industry for several years. And it's all due to the continuously ongoing drainage of energy from their root chakra, which is not only the sex chakra, but also the source of our vitality. This is why I myself am very careful to not post sexualized content on my social media. You know, I follow a lot of different detox and fasting people on Instagram and Facebook who often post nude, suggestive images of themselves. And don't get me wrong, they're gorgeous and sexy, and it gets them a lot of likes and followers. But this attention comes at a price. Unfortunately, when you put yourself out there in this way, that milkshake of yours brings all the boys to the yard. But trust me when I tell you, you do not want those boys or girls, for that matter, anywhere near your yard. Of course, everyone can do whatever they want, but you may want to take the information I just gave you into consideration. Now, I don't want to go much deeper into the aspects of sexual intrusion, The only goal of this detour was to illustrate the mechanism of the theft and the draining of energies by extra-physical beings, because a similar thing happens when it comes to food. Much in the same way that a person feels a lack of satisfaction as a result of their orgasm being hijacked by an extra-physical intruder who drains their energy, someone who is intruded by entities looking for gastronomical pleasures will also fail to reach satiety because the intruded drains that energy right from under them, thus causing them to feel the need to keep eating. Sometimes people eat so much that they feel like they might pop, yet they can't achieve a sense of fullness and satisfaction. So it is indeed true that dry fasting can provide a short reprieve by forcing our extra-physical intruders to temporarily disconnect from our energy system, sending them off to look for another source of supply. And once the entity or entities are gone, the person can then fast without too much hunger and discomfort. But even though the intruder may not be thrilled about this, they know that it's only for a limited number of days, because sooner than later, you're going to have to go back to eating. Furthermore, they know that the longer you fast, the softer your resolve as you get weaker and more dehydrated, making it easier to manipulate you and to bend you to their will. In fact, you're much more vulnerable to the intrusion immediately after the fast because you're hungry and thirsty. And when you finally do break your fast, they come right back in with a vengeance, and the toxic binge cycle continues. And this is where serious energy work is required. And I'm not talking about meditation, because meditation is not energy work. Meditation is a spectrum of various trance states. So while meditation is good for a number of things, it only utilizes imagination. I think that everyone can agree that imagining doing something and actually doing it energetically isn't the same thing. Just like imagining eating cake isn't the same as actually eating real cake. I mean, if this were the case, then we wouldn't spiral into binges as a result of our cravings. Instead, we'd be able to easily solve our food addictions by imagining ourselves eating without actually consuming the foods that are harmful to the body. So while knowing how to utilize specific trance states with precision can help you open up your channeling and some other psychic abilities, it definitely has its limitations. In all of my studies over the last 26 years that I've been exploring parapsychism, nothing compares to the manual energy manipulation called VELO, which stands for the Voluntary Energetic Longitudinal Oscillation. This energy work, which I teach privately, either as a part of my Ascension program or on its own, is tremendously effective. It opens up the chakras and clears energy blocks that make our energy body rigid, thus preventing us from being able to perceive subtle energies, as well as making it easier for the extraneous energies to stick to us. Consistent application of VELO raises the frequency of the energosoma by clearing intrusive energies from both the dead and the living humans alike. And over time, it will help to permanently dissolve any energo plugs that may have been installed by opportunistic parasitic entities. So while the fasting state can be utilized to enhance energy work, outside of the temporary loosening of the energy body, it won't necessarily solve your emotional or energetic problems. It can temporarily make you feel better in that short space of time where your intruders disconnect because they aren't being fed. What fasting does do is bring out and magnify any existing imbalances. The other drawback of solely relying on fasting for consciousness expansion and psychic development is that prolonged fasting can only be done in limited time intervals. Let's say that, if you can only fast 10, 11 days a few times a year, then what are you doing to keep that momentum going in between fasting? And a lot of people I know can't even go that many days in one stretch to begin with. Most can average 2, 3 days, which isn't long enough to loosen the energy body. Now, of course, you have to start somewhere and then continue building your endurance over time. What I'm saying is that while fasting can definitely be a useful tool in your spiritual development toolbox, you're going to need other methods and applications to help facilitate spiritual growth. Things that will keep the momentum going and growing in between the fasts. Because if after the fast you go back to business as usual, your energy body will get stagnant and gunked up again. And then the next time you fast, you'll be starting from scratch all over again. So energy work is vital for raising your frequency by consistently clearing your energy system and dissolving parasitic and ergo plugs. The same way we have to continuously wash our physical bodies, we must also cleanse our energy body with similar regularity. Another thing I would like to clarify is the idea that when we fast, we become of interest to various non-physical beings. There is some validity to this, but it's not that when we fast, we all of a sudden begin to attract guides, dead relatives, and other entities. They're always there. It's just that normally we're not able to perceive them in our dense state. However, when we fast and sufficiently disconnect from the physical body, it enables us to pick up on non-physical phenomena. And so we simply become aware of their presence and therefore are more reachable and receptive to them. Now, the final bullet point I'd like to address has to do with the energetics of food. I've been saying this forever, and I don't know if people really get this, but when we eat, it's not about the calories or nutrients. It's about the energy of the food we consume that sustains us. Just as we have an energy body, so does an apple, a cucumber, and a potato. And that energy is transferred to us upon consumption, which is what gives us vitality. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the produce we buy at the supermarket has almost no energy left. You see, when you pick a piece of fruit in the wild, which hasn't been interfered with either through genetic modification or by being chemically treated in order to extend its shelf life, once that fruit has been plucked off the tree, it deteriorates and goes bad very quickly. The reason for this is that having been disconnected from the living energy source, it loses its stored energy very, very fast. For example, if you pick a wild apple, it starts to rot within a couple of days. In other words, the physical appearance of the apple truthfully reflects the dissipation and loss of its vital energy that manifests as deterioration. A creepy but, I think, appropriate analogy would be a dead body. Once the body is disconnected from the soul, therefore its energy source, it begins to decompose very quickly. However, thanks to the advances in modern science, and I'm being facetious here, we have found a way to artificially preserve the structural integrity of produce past its natural point, despite the loss of energy and life force. The produce we buy at the supermarket has been chemically altered in such a way that its appearance does not reflect this loss of nourishing vital energy, almost like an embalming process, where on the surface, things might look okay, but on the inside, it's nothing but a dead corpse. So what many people label as nutritional deficiencies is oftentimes due to the consumption of food that's effectively devoid of life force and has no nourishment to give us. Now, I have one final note relating to Hildy that I think is important for everyone who practices dry fasting, and then I promise I'm going to wrap this up. Dry fasting has been implicated as one of the reasons that may have led to Hildy's demise by causing her to have a heart attack. Once again, I want to reiterate that I do not know this to be an indisputable fact. However, I want to use this alleged scenario as a cautionary tale. It is entirely possible to bring on a cardiac arrest by not observing proper fasting safety guidelines. Most of you who are here today have listened to Dr. Fulanov and read his books, so you know that if your resting heart rate goes above 120 beats per minute and you cannot bring it down, then you must break your fast. But there's an additional aspect to this that you might not be aware of. In most cases, fasting as well as severe calorie restriction causes us a chronically slow heartbeat. And we're talking much slower than the norm here. Now, a sharp increase in food and caloric consumption significantly speeds up the heart rate because more blood is being directed toward the digestive organs. And when this transition from food abstinence to food consumption is too abrupt, where you go from eating nothing for a long time to overeating right after breaking a fast, you're causing your heart rate to increase too rapidly, which can cause a cardiac arrest. So please be careful and break your fast very slowly and gradually. I bring this up because someone on Instagram asked me, how is it that some people who are on the keto diet can dry fast for 5-7 days and be fine? But I think that they're taking an enormous risk. It's like playing the Russian roulette. The body may be able to withstand this kind of stress for some time, letting you skate by, but eventually it is going to snap. And maybe that's what happened with Hildy. Again, I don't know this with certainty. So please be careful, because every prolonged dry fast is a risk. Dry fasting has limitations and contraindications. It's not for everyone, nor is it appropriate for every condition. It takes a good deal of self-knowledge, discernment, and intuition even to know when it's time to stop. Don't push yourself beyond what's safe because you're trying to keep up with the Joneses. I know with some people, fasting turns into a competition where it becomes an ego thing. Oh, so-and-so fasted how long? Well, I guess I better step it up. That shouldn't be your motivation. So just please be smart about it, okay? Now I'm going open up the questions. So if you have any, please come forward.
Okay, guys, you can just unmute yourself and ask your questions. We have a few questions in the chat, and we also have a few questions on WhatsApp that I sent you. So you decide which questions you want to address first. Okay, guys.
Don't jump in all at once.
Well, then I get started if nobody is coming forward. Thank you so much, Ivanna, for I think this just giving a bigger perspective on health and especially death and life is very helpful, especially I think in the detox journey, because as you said, we get so easily attached to there's this fine line between in detox. I think like you even sometimes get more attached to the body than you were before you started detoxing. At least that's what I'm seeing in my life, and you know, what we've also seen with, anyway, so a few things. Quick question. I know that you probably have mentioned it in one of your talks, and you can keep it very brief. We've been seeing, you know, a few people from the raw food community, kind of health coaches, turning back to, you know, to the carnivore diet, and they apparently so much better. They don't have, like, they have a better skin, no acne, hormone balances is out, have more energy. I'm kind of aware where your answer might be going, but maybe you can just, you know, share your thoughts around that, you know. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the first thing people need to understand that there are 4 stages of lymphatic stagnation: acute, subacute, chronic, and degenerative. You feel your symptoms only in 2 of those stages, acute and degenerative. Now, this is something I've had experience with myself. So when people go on a detox journey, and let's say they've had chronic conditions which are buried underneath and they produce no symptoms. But when you go into a detox, what you're doing is that you are retracing or walking back your lymphatic stagnation. So you go from chronic to subacute to acute. Once you get to the acute stage, that's where the symptoms turn on, right? So this is what people start to have pain, start to have cold flu-like symptoms. They may be losing hair and all that other stuff. Now, when they switch back to the keto diet, the paleo diet, or even carnivore diet, what they're doing is, one, they're stopping detox and they're driving that problem back into its chronic state. Now, what happened to me was that when I went from a sad diet, basically consisted of everything, to the paleo diet, where I had cut out grains, dairy, and was only eating meat, vegetables, and eggs, things started to get, you know, very good for me. I felt really, really good, right? And that lasted me about 10 years. Why? Because, you see, I was being in maybe at that stage, at subacute stage, starting to go, moving toward chronic degenerative, where I was not feeling good. By removing some of the inflammatory foods like grains, dairy, and processed foods, I slowed down my trajectory to the wall that I was going to hit anyway. So now, instead of going, let's say, 100 miles per hour, I was moving toward it at 40 miles per hour. And it took me about 10 years to get there, but hit it I did. And once I got there, then all of a sudden the diet that had worked for me for 10 years no longer worked for me. And now you're in a panic because you go, well, I don't understand what's happening. I'm doing everything right. I'm doing the same things. I haven't changed. And so why is this happening to me? Right? And then I went on the vegan keto diet. And again, things calmed down. My skin became great. You know, my hair started to grow back again. But that only lasted 6 months. And then again, everything started going downhill. And again, I'm freaking, like, I was doing everything right. What's happening? Why isn't this working anymore? Why? Because once you get to a certain point of deterioration, there is no band-aid that's going to stop it. Now, when people go on these diets, especially carnivore diet, they're not restoring their hormones. You have to understand that animal flesh contains animal hormones. It contains sex hormones. It contains neurotransmitters produced by the adrenals. So it's not that eating meat or animal products is restoring their hormonal production. They're artificially supplementing those hormones they're getting from the animal flesh. It's almost like a form of supplementation. And that's why they start to look better. But again, it's only temporary, the way it was for me. Because yeah, you stop the acute stage where you're detoxing. Now you go to subacute chronic, where you don't feel things, but while you're not feeling things and you're eating bad stuff, your condition continues to advance. And sooner or later, it's going to move toward the degenerative state. And this is when you start to get cancers, where you start to get all kinds of bad stuff happening. And for some people, this transition from going from subacute to degenerative can take some time, and they can feel good for years before they get to that end point. So they think that what's happening is good and positive, but it's actually not. They're still moving toward that wall that I was moving toward. For me, it took initially 10 years, but then even vegan keto, it was only 6 months before, again, it no longer, the suppression or the stimulation no longer work. It's like when you have a leak in the ceiling, right? That destroys your ceiling, your wall. But instead of fixing the leak, you put a layer of plaster over it and you paint it over. So for a little bit, it looks good. You can't see anything, right? But the leak continues to drip and continues to deteriorate the wall and the newly, applied plaster. And sooner or later, it's all going to come crashing down. It's just a matter of time. So that's what's happening.
Yeah, that makes very much sense and very informative. Thank you. And I have it really makes sense. Great. And a follow-up question, a brief question, like when we talk about detox, we talk about, it's not about adding things, right? It's about, how do you call it? Like
Eliminating.
Exactly. And so I caught myself a little bit, and we talk also about mono meals, right? That kind of stuff. And I caught myself lately that, since many weeks or almost months, I eat 3 things, like cucumber, apples, because you can combine them, celery and whatever, like 4 things. And then sometimes, then I think all these different fruits that there are and vegetables that you can eat. And maybe I need some vitamins of strawberries and blah, 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 blah. So how can I navigate through that? Like, do I need my body, does my body need, probably not, but a variety of fruits, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like my thing is like,
yeah, I think that it does in some ways, but again, the nutritional needs of the body have been greatly overestimated. I think that the more important thing is that you enjoy what you eat, that you're not doing this to restrict yourself, like I said, to get to some deeper level of something. Because the mental state and outlook with which you approach, like what is your motivation when you're doing this? That's very important and can make all the difference in your healing journey.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I just want to share an anecdote to that. Like many years ago, and I was vegetarian, vegan vegetarian, and I kind of I had struggles with my body and with eating in general, and stuff like that. And then I started to, whenever I eat something, like really I added like 20 minutes of eating it very consciously, and like every bite I was like, I nourish my body, like every single bite, I didn't look at my phone, I didn't blah, 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 blah. And then my health increased in this 3 months. I lost weight, in a good way, but I was thriving, and people were, what are you doing? I didn't change anything, but I really consciously ate what I wanted to eat. Anyway, it just when you talked earlier about that, it reminded me of that. And rather than even you eating nutritious food without being conscious about it, it's the same when you do workout, right? When you do
Yes.
ab workout, and when you are 10 strong workouts make such a difference, and I've done that many times, than 40 without being in the present moment. Yeah, mind to body thing, you know. Anyway, just very confirming, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, Ivana. Thank you.
Well, one thing I want to add to this again is about the prana. Like, people think that we need to do something special to access prana. The truth is, we're all living off of it, all of us. I mean, if we weren't considering the horribly inadequate diet that consists of non-food like products that's being consumed by the majority of people on this planet, we wouldn't be walking around. Because it's not the food that nourishes us. It's just that the food that we eat that is really inappropriate for consumption is what actually blocks, you know, it's like it clogs the filters that doesn't allow us to get the full transfusion of the prana that we already all get. You can't be alive in this physical dimension without being plugged into prana. So the misconception with breatharianism is that, you know, that there's a need to somehow learn how to consume prana directly to wean yourself off food. We're already all consuming prana, period. We just haven't figured out the mechanism of how we're doing it, and haven't cleaned out the body enough so that there are no obstacles for that energy to come into our body more fully. And of course, the dependencies and addictions are another thing that, you know, keeps us stuck in this food cycle. So
I've noticed that with choose fasting, you know, talking about calories, you know, when I did my choose fast, and I'm still fasting, choose fasting a lot, is I consume much more calories. Like if I would track it down, I mean, I don't, because I don't really care. You know, I probably had, you know, 4,000 calories on the choose fast a day, or 3 to 4. And, you know, when you eat in different, like, you know, if I would eat a little bit of rice, a little bit of vegetables, or, and, you know, maybe even processed food, you know, like 2 hamburgers at McDonald's are probably, I don't know, 1,500 calories, whatever. So, and I lost you know, a decent amount of weight on a choose fast with 3,500 calories a day, you know. So compared to, yeah, it was again very, you know, confirming to what you said earlier, talking about the energies of food and calories. It's really just that we shouldn't even talk about calories.
yeah, and not just that, but the beliefs that we have.
Yeah.
You know, I give the example of Anastasia. Like, when you believe that the food is the enemy, your body, that's how your body will treat it. So again, it's about the unconscious programming and the ideas that we had attached to food that really trip us up.
Thank you. That's all from my end. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Arik.
Thanks,
Thank you, Ivana.
Thank you. Thank you, Connie. Okay, guys, do you have any more questions? You're welcome to unmute yourself and ask.
Hi, Ivana.
Hi, Joanna.
I have a question that I have sent to Arik via the group, but I will address it live now. It's kind of in the same direction as what we've already discussed, but it's a more subtle aspect. I just wanted to see your intake on this. A lot of people are on this path and on this journey of detoxing, fasting, and so on. And at some point, after a year, 2, 3, they just hit a wall or in a plateau phase and feel stuck. They just don't want to go back to the old ways, but lack the energy to go further, to go to dig deeper, to say so. how can I help them? How can I encourage them? Or what would be the tools to get them unstuck from this?
Now, when you say people don't have energy, do you literally mean they don't have energy because they have weak adrenals and they're exhausted, or they don't have the will, the desire to continue?
Exactly, the desire, the emotional,
Right.
they
So
are
the
emotionally
problem,
tired.
right. So the problem is emotional and mental, and that lies in their definitions. Because you see, if you are fundamentally unhappy and you lack joy in your life, it doesn't matter what diet you eat, it doesn't matter if you get better or not, you're still unhappy. Do you understand? So that's where the unhappiness comes from. Now, do these people actually get better, or do they get stuck where they cannot make progress past a certain point and they still have problems?
Something like this, and this is exactly what you said earlier. They are in a constant pursuit of something. They just want to reach a perfect state of health, but they are not going as fast as they would like, and they just have these problems, have lack of energy. They encounter this unpleasant situations, and they just get demotivated in going further.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I mean, I can see that. I've been there. But the thing is, it's like you have to approach this not from the point of view of detox and talk about what else they can take. This is about addressing the mind. You know, it's about reframing what's happening. What people have to understand that once they start detoxing, they can't really stop in the middle, because it's like remodeling a house. It's like when you start demolishing things in your house because you wanted to renovate your home, and you knock down walls and you ripped off cabinets, and then you go, oh shit, this looks really bad and I don't like this, right? So if you stop, you stuck with the mess. You understand? If you stuck in the middle, like you have to keep going to clean up the mess. But there are NLP techniques, and you are familiar with this because I worked with you, that can set people up for success, where you can make it so that they look forward to what they have to do, that they have a clear picture of the steps that it's going to take to get them from point A to point B, and we get them excited about it. We shift it around in their unconscious mind. We hitchhike a nice feeling to it, where they all of a sudden they start get excited about things. Like they start liking the food. They can't wait to get up and go work out. Do you understand? But it's the change, that mental, emotional change, that's going to help to change their physical body, more than the detox itself, more than the diet itself.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, I thought it was in this direction. Of course, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ivana. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
I have a question. Ivana, I was just wondering if you could address anything regarding the parathyroid and calcium utilization. That's something that I've noticed. I think you've talked about a little bit before, you know, how vegans or raw vegan fruitarian lifestyle can tend to create compromises in bones and calcium issues. Anyway, I've really been facing some challenges with that myself, and you know, major weight loss and just varicose veins and extreme like you know, my fingernails get soft and all that, and I'm just wondering if there's like some kind of balance that I can look for and not like overdoing it and just like frying myself or frying all the calcium out of my system, and like what's a good way to balance that out, like add in some vegetables, or does it have to be cooked? Anyway, it's
No,
something I'm trying to work.
Cooked food it has nothing in it that's going to help you build. There's no cooked food on this planet that has inherently anything in it that's building, because it's dead. It's absolutely dead. It has no energy, has no nutrition. Whatever was in it when it was raw has been altered and compromised and is absolutely unusable. So when people go on cooked food, the weight they gain is not muscle, is not actual weight, it's inflammation. You start to retain water. That's what happens. And you can easily verify this, because if you go on a short dry fast, 2 to 3 days, all of that weight is going to go like this. And you know that during dry fasting, muscle is preserved. So that just proves to you that that weight is not real. It's water, it's inflammation. So people need to sort of let go of this nonsensical idea that cooked food builds them. It doesn't build anything. It just creates inflammation in your body. And inflammation causes water retention, because that's one of the, edema is one of the ways that body battles acidosis. So cooked food has got nothing for you. Now, you said you're really thin, and you talk about calcium utilization, but before you can even get to calcium utilization, you have to get past digestion and absorption. Because if you're not digesting, if your pancreas, your liver is compromised, if your small intestine is lymphatically backed up, then you can't even get to the stage of utilization. So sometimes you have to look, you see what I'm saying? So you can even take parathyroid glandulars, and you can take, alfalfa leaf juice, sea moss, but if your body can't digest it, it's not going to absorb it, and certainly is not going to utilize things that it cannot absorb. So in some ways, going on parathyroid glandulars may not even do anything for you, because your body cannot digest, absorb, and utilize it. There are also some amino acids that are vital for bone and tissue building. These amino acids, like proline, lysine, and lysine and arginine together, specifically for hair, skin. Proline is for muscle, right? And proline is also extremely important for bone building. When we go on an all raw vegan diet, we're no longer consuming animal products that contain these amino acids. Now, fruits do have them in very minute amounts, but only select fruits do. You see, so if you're not eating those things, like raisins or dried apricots, then you're not getting them in. And that can create, exacerbate the situation, because then you really can't rebuild. You can't put those things, those structural amino acids, you're missing them, or whatever you are taking in from your food is really very little. So there has to be an emphasis, and you can go and Google this, look up which plant food, and these things are really mostly present in nuts, beans, and so on. But of course, we're not eating them, right? And by the way, eating nuts and beans, unless they're sprouted, again, you get zero use out of those anyway. But there are certain fruits, vegetables, avocados, bananas have a lot of them. So you have to make sure that you're including those in your diet. But the most important thing, of course, is to see how your digestion is. And you have to see if you have a malabsorption ring. And if you are thin, that I already know that you are not even digesting. You have to look at your pancreas, you have to look at your stomach, you have to look at your liver, gallbladder. Because if those things are not working properly, that you can't even talk about utilization, because you can't utilize that which you don't digest or absorb. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, thank you for that. And so, I mean, from the answer, what you're suggesting is there are actually certain raw fruits and vegetables that you would recommend to up the amino acids, because lysine, that one you mentioned in a test, in a non-invasive test I did. Art.
It's
Yeah, that is actually one
L-arginine
specifically.
for hair.
L-arginine. Yeah, and I'm aware that I'm very. I mean, I was from a test I did. That was obvious that that one was something I was low in. Anyway, I guess I've sort of put myself under the mindset that my body can figure it out, or like my liver can. I don't know what I was understanding. The liver is what is the chemical, manufacturer, that it's not about giving it a certain thing, but it's about, providing it with the energy, and then my body can create the amino acids that it needs. But are you suggesting then that there are certain amino acids that are essential, like they say, like the experts
For
would
certain
tell
amino acids, yes, and certain amino acids are essential, like for example, glycine. You cannot get it from food, but it's important for collagen building and for skin. I think that glycine can be derived from serine, and serine is present in food. So there's a lot of amino acid conversions. Like you really have to go into this, but there are certain things like chlorella or alfalfa is going to have some of these. They don't have all of them. So what I'm saying is, like, get things like that are powdered leaf juices, because those are easier to digest. Because when it's a freeze-dried leaf juice, it's like basically drinking a juice. You can digest it in your mouth because your saliva has digestive enzymes. So when you are malabsorbed, you don't have proper digestion because of your liver, your pancreas, then you'll have better luck with with getting more nutrition through juices or liquids. And of course, yes, the liver is the one that conjugates all of these chemicals, these amino acids. So that's why I'm saying it's another issue where if your liver is not working, then you really can't convert the stuff that you get from your food into specific amino acids that have so many different vital roles in the body. They're messengers, they transmit signals from nerve cells. They act as catalysts. So they're important. And yes, liver is vital in your ability to be able to actually convert all of these amino acids and have them do what they need to do for you. So this is a multi-layer problem. You have to address the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas, the stomach, because some people, they're done at digestion. They can't even digest stuff. Forget about what the liver does. They can't even, like, their stomach doesn't even break food down. They have atrophy of the stomach. So it all depends on your case. And, I've been telling people this, and I think that was you that posted a question about this device, Healy. Was that you?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Right.
Thank you for addressing that.
I don't know about that because I didn't have enough time to look into it. I mean, certainly frequency has impact on matter because everything is frequency. And we see this, but I don't know about this specific device. I would be cautious if it uses electricity. It says IMF. There is some kind, I don't know what kind of frequency it is, because I looked at their website and they're being very sort of vague. I guess they don't want to give their secrets away, but it makes it very unclear the mechanism that is employed in this device. They talk about Tesla, but they're not being specific. This is what it is. They call it IMF. I don't know what kind of frequency it is. I know, yes, there's magnetic, but if there's electric frequency, then it's not good for us. Okay, the same way, plugging yourself to a cell phone is not good for you. So I don't know. I don't know enough about it, but I have been using magnets. I talked about this before, and there's scientific data that shows that they work. They reduce tumors. They really, really, been proven to have a positive impact because they change the charge of the cells. So there's certainly things that can be helpful. healing could be one of the things. I simply don't understand enough about it to be able to tell you yes or no.
On the notes, or Arik or somebody, the magnets that you had mentioned, I don't know if you have or can say it now, what those magnets are to refer as a reference.
The website, I believe, is biomagscience.net. Biomagscience, but it's one word. And if you follow them on Facebook, they always give you like 25% off. So you don't have to pay full retail. So instead of paying $189 for the kit, you want to buy the kit with the book, with the instructions, with all of the magnets. With the discount, it comes up to $109 plus standard shipping, like $5 or something like that. And I have them, I use them. It's a process. You have to sort of build up. You start with one protocol for like a week, then you start adding more things, but it works. And by the way, these magnets also protect you from EMFs and the harmful radio frequencies. Are you there? I think we lost you.
Yeah, we might have lost him. Okay, guys, do you have any more questions?
Hi, Ivanna.
Oh, hi, Rachel.
I've been listening all the time, so you couldn't see me, but I could see you and hear you. So actually, it's not like I've got. I mean, you've answered so many questions. In general, like, how could people with all the toxins, the way they eat, medications, the jabs, I don't know, of course, radiation and pollution and everything, and how do they survive? They live good life. And
listen, it's truly a miracle. It doesn't it doesn't cease to amaze me how much the body can withstand. I'm currently taking care of a 99-year-old man. He doesn't walk, he can't, all that, but he's alive. I mean, his body, you can see the body's falling apart, but it's 99 years old. He's still here. I mean, it's all bad. There's stuff coming out of him, but it's like, it's the marvel of God's engineering. That's really what it is.
yes, it's amazing. I mean, I see people around me after taking 3-4 boosters, and everybody's well and happy. And
well, you can't say everybody's well, because I've had people tell me, oh no, I'm really healthy, and then you find out they're on 4 different medications. They can't get pregnant for the last 4 years, but they think they're healthy. You understand? Like, people have an idea of healthy that is not a healthy idea of what healthy is. So I wouldn't go by somebody's word when they say that they're healthy, because I've seen people be grossly overweight, be on multiple medications, not be able to conceive, and think that they're healthy.
They think it's natural to have some kind of condition.
Yes.
In the background, it's sugar, fat, high blood pressure, some tumors. Yeah. So, so they think that's natural.
Yeah.
And so it's just amazing. We're fasting, we're eating healthy, and we're still having problems. So how do the rest of the world survives, even thrives? Okay.
Well, I don't know if thrive is the right word to describe the state of the world population. I don't think that is the correct word to use, but I mean, we do the best we can. And the thing is, look, even with diet and fasting, we're exposed to so much chemical pollution
That's right.
that we cannot control. We absolutely cannot control. Even being around somebody, like if you go to work, you're in an office setting and somebody wears fragrance, a lot of people wear, perfumes and colognes, that affects you. You may not be wearing them, but you being able to smell them, that fragrance is poisoning you. What are you going to do about it? You're going to tell people, stop wearing your fragrance? It's a matter of fighting, like I said, finding a balance. Get yourself to a point where you feel good, where you're not in pain, you're good, and just live and be happy.
Yeah, well, we're doing our best. Yeah. So, well, I just enjoy other people asking. So some of the questions answer my, some of the answers questions. They answer my question.
Good.
I see her in the chat, somebody asking, what is the, if you're over the age of 60 or 60, even 50, what is a healthy and reasonable diet? I mean, so that's.
Look, what is a healthy diet is a living diet. And a living diet is the one that hasn't been touched by heat or frost, because freezing things is also not good. It changes the molecular structure of those fruits and vegetables. So the healthy diet would be living diet that is plant-based.
Nothing processed, no cooked.
No. I have a video. I did a webinar, I think.
Yeah, no, I've seen it all.
For Frederick's group, where I explain how heat alters and changes specific compounds in the food, making them absolutely unusable and some of them extremely toxic. There is zero benefit you can get from cooked food, period. None, except for emotional gratification. Your body gets absolutely zero benefit from cooked food, and some of it is actually harmful to you.
So that's what I'm saying. It's amazing how we're still alive, and with all the toxins we're exposed to. And yeah, humans are a strange animal. I mean, animals, everything is so simple. It's about instincts. They are connected to nature, that they know what they should eat. And we're so detached, and we have to think what we are supposed to eat. Shouldn't that be a natural, instinctive thing? So it is amazing.
No animal in nature heats its food.
Or mixes it. Yeah.
And also, no animal in nature, unless they're exposed to pollution, gets cancer. They can get injuries and stuff, but if they truly lead a natural life and they have access to their natural food sources, they don't get cancer. But our domestic animals get cancer because of the crap that we give them, because we feed them the way we feed ourselves.
What do you think the lifespan of humans should have been? I mean, had we, if we eat the right food, we are supposed to eat.
As much as it pains me to say this, because I really am not enchanted by this whole experience, like I can't relate to it, but I think probably 120 years. A person that is healthy and eating good diet, yeah. And not just, and what I'm saying is not like, like the way these old people live, that they're on all medication, they're chained to a wheelchair and they need to be diapered. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about 120 years, you're moving around, you're running around, you're doing your stuff, you're dancing, you're having sex, everything. So that's what I mean, because that is not life. When I see these people, I'm like, this is not life. Like I talked about this young man that's been bedbound. He's on a respirator for 15 years. He doesn't move. He doesn't communicate. And his mother wants to keep him alive. And I'm like, this is torture. Like, if this happened to me, somebody please pull the damn plug. Like, I don't understand that, like, wanting to keep this kid alive at all costs when it actually is painful for him. This is the insanity of the human animal.
All right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes.
Ivanna, just going back to, oh, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this, Arik, that you organized it, and thank you, Ivanna, for
Thank you.
your information. I came with a question right now because I think we had a meeting before, Ivanna, and I think you felt how it's like being me, the confusion in my mind and things that are not moving so smoothly in my life. And I feel like I've tried many things, but maybe it's like, how can I change my frequency so these situations stop repeating themselves, and things and the things that I try to implement in my life really works for a long distance instead of just 1 week or 2 weeks. For example, I got a wonderful meditation from Arik, and I was very happy, something that really worked for me at last, something that worked very much. And I noticed a very huge improvement in 1-2 weeks, but then I lost it. I lost it, and I was...
That's normal, Vanessa, for things to change, because what happened for you was that, yes, it worked for you, it pulled your frequency up and it got you to a certain level, but it only worked for a certain level of frequency. Now you need to find another thing that's going to take you higher, because the thing that got you here is not going to take you there. Do you understand?
Yeah, okay. So we have
don't get stuck that this is the same thing. You know, that's the point of growth. It's like, yeah, for a 5-year-old learning how to read and add numbers, what was growth, it was good. But you know, when he's 12, then that's not good enough. At this point, he's falling behind. So you need to continue to add and expand on it, not try to make one thing constantly work for you. It's not possible, because if that thing has, you said, made you feel better, it has done its job, but it is limited as to how far it can raise your frequency. And now your frequency has been raised. That means that's why it no longer works, because now you have equalized the frequency of the meditation and your own frequency. So you've hit a plateau. So now what you need to do, you need to find another thing. You need to continue to develop yourself. And it's not going to be just this one meditation. It's going to be other things, energy work, you know, things like NLP that help you reframe things in your head. Like, you got to find, what are the things that are holding you back? How am I sabotaging myself? What obstacles am I creating for myself? Of what obstacles do I have that may not be creating for me, but I perceive them to be as obstacles? And what can I do about them?
Yeah, I think about it sometimes. For the first, I struggle with implementing routines. I feel that I have to put a routine, do something for a long period of time to see whether it really works. And another thing is that, what is the point? We have to always change things all time. We are always changing. Isn't it a distraction?
No, it's the very nature of nature. The nature is always changing. The universe is always expanding. Growth is inextricably woven into our nature. That's what we are about. It's not, why is it a distraction? It's an expansion. And an expansion cannot happen if you're constantly doing the same thing.
Yeah, so it's not enough with just making affirmations. Or I feel that I've been working with myself for a long time, but I start here and I improve a little bit, and then something happens and I go back, or I didn't move.
But that's different. But that's different, because what you're talking about is regressing.
Yeah, sometimes I feel that I'm regressing. Sometimes I just feel that I'm stuck.
That's okay, but the important thing is that you don't stay there. It's normal. We go back and forth. It's okay. Everybody does it. You're not special. You're not the worst of them because you go back or you get stuck again. But the important thing is that you don't stop, that you don't camp out and start living there.
Yeah.
That you catch yourself. Okay, all right. I had my little pity party and now let me put myself up by the bootstraps and do something. But the important thing, and this is the most simple and most profound piece of advice I could give to anybody. The formula to living your best life is as follows. Follow your highest excitement to the best of your ability until you can take it no further without any insistence or expectation as to the outcome. Let's break this down. Follow your excitement to the best of your ability until you can take it no further. Find a thing every single day that makes you happy, makes you excited, because that's what raises your vibration. That's what pulls your frequency up. Now, the part where it says to the best of your ability until you can take it no further implies that that one piece of excitement can only take you so far. Do you see? There's going to come a point that it will no longer work for you. Yeah. So the formulas say only follow it as long as you're getting something out of it, which goes back to the thing you said about meditation, where you said, well, I was doing it at work and then it stopped working. So I stopped doing anything and now I'm stuck. But that's not how it works. You follow your excitement to the best of your ability until you can take it no further. Because once you get to that point, then you have to start to look around. What's the next thing that excites you? And it will always come. And when we say follow your passion, your excitement, we're not talking about some grand overarching thing like your life purpose. No, we're talking small things. If it's more exciting for you to go, to the park with your dog than it is for you to clean your apartment, then do the thing that excites you instead of doing the things that you think that you should do because it seems to the physical mind as the most productive or appropriate thing to do. You see, it's not about the things, it's about the vibration. Circumstances don't matter, only state of being matters, because it's the state of being that creates your circumstances. Therefore, what you should be chasing is the state of being, because that's your vibration. So follow your excitement to the best of your ability until you can take it no further. Now, the next important part of this formula is, without any insistence or attachment with respect to the outcome. Some people will follow their excitement. For example, they want to be an actor, right? But then they hit a wall and they keep banging their head against the wall when the formula of excitement shows that this is it. This is as far as you're going to go here. The point was not to pursue acting. The point was to get you moving in a specific direction that was exciting to you. So the idea is to not get attached to the outcome and not insist that that thing that you were excited about, initially must work out or must add up to some sort of a culmination, because you're missing the point. Because that thing that may be exciting you today is not actually the thing that needs to come to fruition. It's just the thing that puts you on a certain path, because by following it, you actually get to the next thing that could be the thing. Do you see?
Yeah, I struggle with it. And you gave your own experience as when you started wanting to go in one direction and then things happened and you had to move another way. And then the two, you couldn't integrate them together later on.
Yes.
But for me, I'm struggling with it right now, I must say, because I feel that I have to go this way. Otherwise, you are going to feel stuck and you feel that things don't move.
Well, if you're going someplace, then you're not stuck. There's movement.
Yeah, I know
But
it.
also, you know, Esther Hicks said, you know, in certain situations when you don't know what to do, unless a path or a plan of action is plainly visible to you, then there's nothing for you to do. What I'm telling you is that you need to pursue your excitement, not because it's going to lead you somewhere, but for the sake of excitement.
Yeah.
And that's the point of detaching from the outcome. You're not doing it for a specific goal. You're doing it just because it's exciting. And I promise you that the more you do it, the more things are going to come into your life that will be exciting. And it's that excitement that is going to start magnetizing things to you that you want and need.
Yeah, I see it. Thank you very much, Ivanna. Thank you, Arik, again.
Of course. Thank you.
Is Ritzy here today? Yes, no, maybe?
You talked to me, Ivanna. I didn't.
Yeah, no, I know. Ritzy, she sent a question and she said she was going to be here today. But I guess she's not. Are you finished, Vanessa? Or do you have more questions?
No, I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So let me find that question. And I want to answer it for Ritzy because it's an interesting question that other people may benefit from. Okay. So she says, please suggest if you know about pancreatitis pseudocyst. It has increased from 95 millimeters to 106 millimeters in the last 3 months. Does any medication or food diet can treat it, or only surgical drainage is the solution? Also, any right diet or herbs or good food which can shrink pseudocyst on its own? Okay. So the first thing I want to address is that a pseudocyst is just a sac filled with fluid. Now, if you're collecting water in your organs, that tells me that you're extremely acidic, because the way body responds to acidosis is through calcium buffering system, through cholesterol, and water. Wherever you're most acidic and toxic, the body's going to bring in and hold water in an attempt to dilute the toxins and the poisons so that they can be flushed out. Now, all our organs, but more so our digestive organs, are really affected by the state of our GI tract. I don't have her eye pictures, but I am almost certain there has to be a big weakness that causes leakage of toxic material into the pancreas. So you have to address GI tract, that has to be cleaned out. Now, as far as the diet goes, it would be helpful if I knew what Ritzy's diet currently is. Obviously, I'm always for raw fruitarian diet. And I'm tired of the questions about how sugar is bad for the pancreas. It's not. I made a video about it. Please see it on my channel or explain it in detail. Now, the best thing to go on would be a grape diet. But whenever you have such inflammation, and especially one where you have fluid collecting in sacs, a dry fast would be extremely beneficial. Now, understand that pancreatitis and any other itis denotes inflammation. Arthritis, phlebitis, anything that's an itis is inflammation. Inflammation cannot exist without water. So dry fasting would be very beneficial here, but you would have to go on a longer fast, a minimum of 8 days, I would say. And you may have to do repeated fasts. Now, the best diet to go on would be grapes. There's nothing better for detox and pulling lymph than grapes. You have to get your kidneys to filter. The fact that you are collecting fluid that sits there and it increases tells me that you are not filtering and that your kidneys are not working very well. So you got to get your kidneys back online. So you need herbs for the kidneys. Now for the pancreas, things like ginger, fennel, cardamom seed are also very good. Any bitters will also help the pancreas as well as the liver. I would be very cautious with lymphatic herbs, specifically tinctures, because when your kidneys are compromised, those cysts can get larger, and you're taking lymphatic herbs that can make the cysts grow larger. So I think that's all I have. It would be nice to have an exchange and ask her more questions, but that's all I can say about it for now. Does anybody have any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, hi.
Hi. So a few minutes ago, you mentioned that we should be avoiding frozen foods.
Mm-hmm.
How bad are frozen foods? Because I eat quite a bit of frozen fruit.
It's not good.
Okay.
It's not, like I would do it in small amounts, like for a treat, you know, when you make banana and ice cream or something like that. I mean, that would be the last resort when you really cannot get your hands on fruits that go for frozen food, because it really changes it sort of breaks it pops and breaks cellular structure within the fruit, making the water content leak out. And that's what happens. You see that happen when you thaw out frozen fruits. Yeah. So the very structure of the fruit is altered, and not in a good way. So eating frozen fruit, frozen vegetables is not ideal.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And one more question. What would you recommend for constipation?
The easiest things you can do, and of course, constipation is often caused by poor adrenal function, because adrenals regulate peristalsis. So if you're stressed, you're going to get constipated. So if you have stress in your life, just reducing stress can help you. Now, the easiest things you can do is juicing celery or pears. Now with celery, you may need to drink as much as 32 ounces in one sitting, and then maybe have another helping. That's going to clear you out. So will the pears. I mean, this is without having to go on herbs. Like, this is something you go to the grocery store and you can solve that problem very quickly. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Also, consuming kelp can help it, because our thyroid regulates the rate of metabolism. And sometimes that's the thing that makes the food move extremely slowly through a GI tract. And so it takes, the transit time is longer. You might be constipated. And especially if you already have thyroid issues, it's very good to add kelp, at least a teaspoon per day. And you might see how your bowel movements will normalize.
Okay.
Outside of that, you know, herbs. You can do Cascara sagrada. You can do Dr. Morse's herbs. But those juices, if you just drink that, celery specifically. Like pear just could be a little harsh, like it will really go through you. Celery is a little more gentle, and it's very good to have it every day as the first meal to break the fast, because it turns on digestion. And it normalizes, it increases your hydrochloric acid, so it normalizes digestion and therefore helps with elimination. Okay?
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Hi, Ivana. I just have a question here on the spelling of
Mhm.
the Serenissimo, and
Yes.
any other information if you want me to maybe message you, or if you want to share anything.
What is it that you're asking me about? You got to be specific.
I was curious about the spelling, and then I don't think there would be any information
So I'm going
by.
to put it into the chat.
Okay.
I don't know why it's not going through. Did you get it?
Not yet.
I don't know why it's not letting me send it. Well, it's SERENISSIMUS.
Thank you. And I didn't know if there was anything else that was like available to.
You really have to take their classes. Like you have to take their program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
Yeah, Ivana, I was I just had another spin-off from what you were saying about the protein, or I mean the amino acids, if you don't mind
Yeah.
addressing that again. So you had mentioned, you were talking about there being specific amino acids that our body doesn't create on its own. And I just wondered if you could say anything about, like, you know, Dr. Morse going on a 6-month oranges or one particular fruit. What's happening in that case? Are you saying there's maybe a different application when the body is clean and it can actually create everything it needs to
There's
do?
a difference between each person's state. Some people are in a better condition than others, both genetically and lymphatically. That's why some people go on these detox diets and they do well, while others don't. That's why some people can eat meat and be okay, while others get cancer, you see? We're not created equal, so you can't compare that because so-and-so did this. And by the way, oranges have a lot of these amino acids, just so you know. Smaller amounts, but they have them. Oranges and grapefruits are one of the fruits that have them.
Make sure I'm understanding what you're saying with that whole discussion, because I've read a lot of things online, you know, regarding amino acids, and there's, you know, the camp I was reading at one point was stressing that if you don't get these in your diet through plant, you know, even if you're doing raw vegan lifestyle, you still have to get these in. But what you're saying is there is a somewhat person to person uniqueness to how we're created and wired, and energetically what actually our body is requiring for us specifically. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, but if you look at the totality of today's discussion, the important thing is not the physical, is not the nutrient, the amino acid. You understand? It's about this. It's about the underlying energy, the vibration.
Mm-hmm.
That's what in I don't know if you saw the last video I did that was just for my own channel. I talked about why some things work for some people but not others. which has to do really with their vibrational frequency and their definitions of things.
Oh yeah, I did watch that. Yeah, no, I think I follow what you're saying.
Yes. So, and that was the whole point of this discussion, is that we're so stuck in this medium of the physical, and we're trying to rearrange certain molecules, and but it's not about that. It's really not. It's about that underlying driving force that you are as a soul. It's about your beliefs. It's about a number of things that has nothing to do with the amino acids. Like we can talk about this all day long. You can go and actually buy a bunch of amino acids. Is it going to help you? I don't know. You have to get out of the state of dis-ease. There has to be a shift in identity, because what happens, we're so identified with the body that we think that this is who we are, that we are our illness, that we are our handicaps, that we are what we look like. We're not. But if that's what you believe yourself to be, that's what you will be. Because physical reality is a mirror. If you look in the mirror and you don't like your hair, are you going to go and start banging on the mirror? It's dumb. Just fix your hair, and the mirror is going to immediately reflect that change. You see?
Yeah.
We are, like, as Dr. Morris would say, you're looking at the wrong end of the donkey here. Okay, you got to turn it around.
Right. So there is essentially, it is come back to the thing of like anything is possible for anyone. It's just that not everyone is at the same place mentally, or
not for anyone. As I said, you may not know that there are some of these restrictions are intentionally set in place by the soul because they shape you in a way. Do you understand? And some of these restrictions are temporary, like until you learn the lesson. But some restrictions are non-negotiable. They're with you for the whole life. You don't know this. But sometimes the lesson is to learn to accept where you are and adopt the best mindset possible. If you listen to Anita Moorjani, and I really recommend it, she's a really wonderful speaker. The way she describes her near-death experience. I mean, this woman was dead, clinically dead, riddled with tumors. Done. She goes on the other side and she starts to understand the insanity of how she had been living her life and how her disease was created and how it's all from self-loathing and non-love for oneself. And she talks a lot about how to shift that, how to understand that you are okay, it's okay for you to be loved and to unconditionally love yourself. But you see what unconditional love means? That means that you unconditionally accept your condition that may not be optimal. Do you understand? And that's where it's difficult for most people. Because you think, once I get to this point, then I'll be acceptable to myself. And then I'll be good. And the point is, like I said, while you're in the process of getting, you never get there. You can never arrive because it's a completely different set of variables that makes up that particular vibrational reality.
Yeah, thank you for that. It makes a lot of sense.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Can I go next?
Sure.
1 second. Okay. So I have a question about herbs, and specifically if a prolonged use of herbs in either tincture form or capsules or even teas can alter the state of the microbiome and therefore kill some of the bacteria. And the digestion is pretty much messed up at some point. The reason I'm asking this question is because I experienced something like this in the past. And I found out that when I stopped taking herbs, pretty much my digestion came back to normal. So I don't know if that's because of the herbs or maybe the alcohol in the tinctures, or it's just a detox symptom because of, let's say, a chronic condition in the gut.
Well, it could be a combination of things. Definitely, you know, when it comes to tinctures that are made with alcohol or even glycerin, that's a problem. Like, I see less of a problem with powdered herbs because they're just vegetables. Do you understand? It's like grass. It's like eating grass. Now, not all herbs are created equal. Some herbs are toxic. And some herbs have, you know, like the antiparasitic herbs, you got to be careful with them because they will affect your liver, right? So that's a problem. But also, some herbs are truly detrimental. And Dr. Morse also talked about it when he poisoned himself with quinine, which is considered to be a medicinal herb. A lymphatic like poke root in certain qualities can be toxic, especially if your liver doesn't work properly, you see? But then things like, you know, dandelion, if you eat just dandelion, you can eat it all day, every day. It's like eating lettuce, you know what I mean? So it depends on what types of herbs we're talking about. And yes, they can have a negative impact on your body, absolutely, especially when your detox pathways are blocked. Some herbs are just more toxic and heavier than others, and they should be taken in limited quantities for limited periods of time, period. And also when it comes to herbs, I always prefer to take the herb unaltered, or as the least unaltered way possible. So powdered herbs, which is just dried herbs that are ground up, versus a tincture, whether it's alcohol or glycerin. Now, some people have to take tinctures because their digestion is so bad that they cannot digest and therefore utilize whole herbs. But that is not something I would take for a long time because alcohol is acidic and it is toxic. And it breaks down into acetaldehyde, which is very hard on the liver and the kidneys, and it affects the brain, it affects the microbiome. It absolutely does. So yes, but this is a complex question. You know, you have to look at specific herbs that you are taking.
And I think the problem was that I was taking, I think, too many different
and it
tinctures.
can, because sometimes they don't interact well with each other.
Yeah.
That can happen also.
Yeah, maybe I should have been a bit more cautious. But yeah,
but
anyway,
you can
thanks.
look this up, you know, if you know which herbs you were taking and you have the bottles.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was taking everything simultaneously, so I can't really say that, for example, ginger might cause me an issue, or
well, ginger, I don't think would cause you an issue. I mean, ginger is just food.
Like, just a random, yeah, it was just a random herb.
But other herbs, like more lymphatic herbs that are high in tannins and stuff like that, yes, they in high quantities for a long time. Especially, the thing is, if you take one herb that has a little bit of microtoxicity, is okay. But you take 5 of them or 10, now you got a problem. Do you see?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just because you're compounding that toxicity, that maybe if you were taking 1 or 2, your body could deal with it. But now if you're taking a lot of them at once, it creates too much of a burden.
Okay. And one final question about probiotics. Would you say like a month or 2 is enough for taking probiotics?
Yeah, I would say so. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The way I would do it is take it for a month, stop, and see what's happening with your digestive health. How are things working? If everything's working great, your mood has improved, then you're good. The problem with most probiotics is the method of delivery. It's very difficult to colonize the gut with live cultures because of the unfortunate state most of our intestines are in, right? So a better way to colonize the gut is by using spores instead of live cultures. So not adult live cultures, but spores. It's like putting seeds in your intestines so that you have a greater chance of those critters attaching and actually staying.
Or water kefir, maybe. Do you also use this, or?
I do not recommend fermented products. Again, acetaldehyde. Anything that's fermented contains acetaldehyde, is a toxic compound, the same stuff, you know, that's in vinegar. Not good for us.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, welcome. Anybody else? If not, then I guess we can wrap this up because it's late. We've been at this for more than 3.5 hours.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Ivana, so now towards the end, just tell us a little bit about services that you provide. We already said that people can find your contact details below this video. Now, what kind of services could you provide to people online, let's say?
Well, one of them is iridology. I read eyes for lymphatic stagnation, genetic weaknesses, potential problems, and so on. I am a detox specialist. I can help you devise a protocol. I am a fasting coach. I coach people on how to properly dry fast. I do psychic readings. I do channeling. I do energy work, energy healing, trauma release. I have an excellent 5-session program called the Ascension Program, which contains video materials, training materials, plus one-on-one time, where I help people deal with their addictions, with their traumas. And the work that I do is very effective and quick. It's not something you're gonna have to go to therapy for 3 years and still have your problem. Within 2 hours, we knock your stuff out. By the time you're done with my session, maybe sometimes it does take 2 hours, your problem is solved, okay? This is not something you're gonna have to keep working on and constantly try to figure out how to live around, right? So this is something that I'm very excited about because you see results so quickly. And I don't know if Doina is still here because I worked with her, and this is something she took my program. So I don't know if she's still here. If she
Yes, I'm here.
So just if you want to maybe share the experience with things that you were able to do.
Yeah, it was amazing regarding my food addictions and my.
How is that going, by the way? Are you still good?
It's going well. I had a cheat one night, and the blowback was just. It was so hard on my body because usually I could handle it, but this time I was so nauseous. I couldn't sleep the whole night. I even vomited for 2 or 3 times. The next day I just stayed in bed the whole day, feeling so low, so down, and just having the same feeling that I don't want to have that cheat anymore, and just an overwhelming sensation of throwing up and feeling nauseous.
Which is what we did. Which is what we did in the conditioning, that this food is going to make you nauseous, is going to make you sick. Just thinking about it is going to make you sick.
Exactly. So, and just going and experiencing it for real, it just solidified, fixed somehow the experience, that the thing that we worked on. It was great. Somehow it just got out of my system for good.
So you no longer feel the desire. Good, good.
No. Yeah, it was awesome.
So
Thank
you see, guys, you're welcome. You're wonderful to work with. Yeah, go ahead.
Just one session. Yeah, it was just one session.
One session, gone. Your food addiction, the thing that you can't say no to, gone. One session.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yep.
Okay.
I can also testify that we worked on a trauma I had. I still haven't managed to figure out how you did it, but you just did it. I don't know.
You did it. You did it. I just showed you the signs where to go. You're the one. I can't take away your trauma. Only you can do that.
Yeah, but you know, you knew exactly what to concentrate on. I don't know. You just sort of, I think because you're very sensitive to energy or things like that, you know, you can sit in sessions for years and they just, I don't know, it's analyze it intellectually and I don't know, without you sort of work with energies, sensitive, intuitive, and it's not about intellectuality or analyze it. And I don't know. So
listen, I have clients. I had one client who sees a psychiatrist. She's on medication, and she went for an appointment with him, and she was trying to talk to him, and he was like, "You have a lot of problems. You should really talk to someone." And she was like, "Wait, aren't you the psychiatrist? Isn't this your job?" Her psychiatrist told her that she should find somebody to talk to about her problems. Okay, so this is the state of therapy people are dealing with. Another client went to therapy, and the therapist said, "You know what? You should really try NLP. Find somebody who does NLP." But the therapist will not learn NLP. Do you understand? The therapist knows about it, knows that it works, but will not acquire a skill that could actually help his patients. But tells them, "You know what? Yeah, we talked about this for years. Good. You know what your problem is. Now you got to go find another practitioner to help you with it." So you got to go, "What is the point of you? Why am I paying you all this money?"
It's like the conventional. It's like the conventional system, like doctors and psychologists. They don't. I don't know. They don't have it. They don't really know how to take care of problems, and you know, all this special way of life with detoxing, of going back to nature, being sensitive to energies. That works. I mean,
Rivital, how can a doctor or a therapist help you when you look at these people when they're so messed up themselves?
That's right.
They can't help themselves. If you go to a doctor and he is obese and he's a smoker and he eats like crap, why do you think that this person can contribute anything valuable to your health?
That's right. They don't know. I went to a liver specialist a few years back, and she suggested that I take a vaccine for what is it? I forgot the name of this disease that you have in the liver.
Hepatitis?
I think so, yeah. And she was obese, and you know, she didn't know anything about liver flushes. And when you do the liver flushes, you see the results. I mean, liver specialists and the way they sort of so detached.
You know, this is why I don't go with the crowd that believes that there's a concerted effort to destroy us, because it's not that these people are living differently because they know the secret. Do you understand? It's just that they don't know.
They don't know.
Because they're stupid, they're uneducated. It's not that they're intentionally trying to hurt you.
No.
It's unintentionally, they just blocked, oblivious.
That's
It's not a
right.
conspiracy. We're going to hide this from them. We're going to give them the medication. No, they're doing the same thing for themselves. Just look at their lives. So it's not that there's this grand conspiracy that's super coordinated, that all of these people, healthcare, are trying to kill you. No, they're killing themselves. They're doing to you what they're doing to themselves. They actually believe that what they're doing is correct.
They're detached, they're disconnected, they're not seeing it, they don't understand. I mean, just like everyone else, I mean, they don't.
That's why you got to be your own doctor.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Ivana, thank you so much, guys. So don't hesitate to contact Ivana if you need her help. So I think we are gonna wrap it up for tonight, for today. Thank you so much, Ivana. It was thought-provoking, amazing, wonderful.
Bye.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for attending.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.